Hello and welcome to the Global Business Podcast. I'm your host Mark Philpott, and on the show I get to speak to business people all across the world about what they're doing to manage their business in these difficult times. Hello and welcome. Yes, if it's your first time with us, welcome to the Global Business Podcast. It's great to have you here. If you've been listening to the show since it started, welcome back. It's great to have you on board. I get to speak to people all across the world about their business innovation ideas and how to handle the challenging times during COVID-19 lockdown and coming out of that process. It's all about sharing here right on the Global Business Podcast, and we're trying to innovate, inspire, motivate and educate people all around the world about what different businesses are doing. So if you're out there listening and you'd like to be on the show and talk about your business and what you're doing during these times, get in contact. I'd love to hear from you and we can see whether we can get you on the show. Today I have another great guest lined up. He's a co-founder of a very large global travel company, and he was in rather a predicament when COVID-19 came to town. So let's get over and meet my guest for today. His name is Carey. So it's a very warm welcome to the Global Business Podcast to Chad Carey. Chad, how are you today?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Mark.
Whereabouts in the world are you talking to us from?
So I'm currently in our office, which is in Mooloolaba, Sunshine Coast, in Queensland, Australia.
There we are. So for people that are listening around the world, just north of Brisbane by what, hour and a half, Chad?
Yeah, about that, about an hour, yeah.
And you've got a fancy new airport going on up there, is that right?
Ah, yes, you're well informed. We do. Well, it's not a new airport. It's a new second runway, which has just been announced. So it's making a bit of noise here, but unfortunately, there's no planes to fly into it at the moment. But yeah, it's there.
Well, I'd like to correct you on that, because yesterday Alliance Airlines did a deal where they're going to start flying passengers from northern Queensland down to the Sunshine Coast for tourist spots and that.
Oh,
so
there you go. You're all across it.
There you go. But no, those people are doing a good job when they're trying to promote travel from your region. So let's hope that airport can be fully optimised in the not too distant future.
Absolutely.
Now, we're going to talk business with you today, and we're going to find out exactly what business you're in. But there's a lot of people across the world at the moment that are severely impacted by COVID-19 and lockdowns and quarantines and all those sorts of things. So I'd like to start off just by asking you a very simple question. How are you personally coping with it all right?
Well, to be honest, it's been a difficult couple of months for us, especially being in the travel industry, which has probably been affected more than anything. But no, I mean, I'm doing fine. I don't know. I guess I sort of have that. I have a reasonably optimistic outlook on life. So I actually seem to shock quite a few of my friends in recent months when they sort of come up to me saying, "Are you okay?" Sort of, just wondering if I'm on edge about everything. But I'm seeing this as it's a difficult situation for everybody, and there's a lot of people really hurting in the travel industry, but in everything. But I'm remaining positive, and I think there's going to be some good opportunities to come.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, as we know, the travel industry has been severely impacted all over the world, and we're going to get a little bit of a deeper dive into that. But I want to start off first by, I guess, sharing with my audience how you got into that business, and it probably goes back to a few beers in an English pub. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. I was living in London, and I met up with a friend of mine who I'd travelled with, quite a few years before that, and he'd just been in South America. He'd married a lady from Peru, and I wanted to go to South America. I don't know why, just a sort of place that appealed to me. I guess it's sort of that adventure side of it. And we got talking, and I was explaining to him how I just wasn't really finding the sort of trips that I wanted in South America and the tour operators that I looked at. And he said it confused him too, having lived there, why there's amazing locations to go to that didn't get taken advantage of more. So between the two of us, over quite a few beers, and as the evening progressed, we decided to start up our own business. And the next morning, our girlfriends and our wives, Greg was already married, his wife, they sort of laughed and said, "Oh, it's not going to happen." But we did. We slowly chipped away, and it took a little while to set up. I travelled around for 6 months and sort of met people and wrote up a business plan, and we got some angel investors and things like that. But eventually we got it up and running.
Brilliant. So there you go. For all those people who are listening out there, come up with great business ideas over a few beers. Some of them actually do come into fruition, yeah?
Absolutely.
So what's the name of the business today, and how long's it been in operation for?
So Chimu Adventures, this is our 16th year.
Mm-hmm. Where did the name come from?
The Chimu were a civilization in Peru. They were a pre-Incan civilization. We really started operating out of Peru. And as we started, we think, what can we call ourselves? And Inca to us seemed a bit cliche. And then we sort of found this civilization called the Chimu, who were quite different from the Incas. The Incas were in the mountains. The Chimu lived on the coast, but they built this huge civilization, and hardly anyone had heard of them. They've actually got the world's second largest archaeological ruin after Angkor Wat in Cambodia.
Right.
And more we looked into them. I'm a coast lover myself. As I live on the Sunshine Coast, I love the ocean. So it was a big connection for me, and that's where it started from.
And your business partner, where was he from?
So he's from Sydney.
Right. Okay. So two Aussies going for it.
That's right. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. How many people in the company?
There's sort of quite a few different business units, and we're quite vertically integrated. So we've got a couple of hotels. We've got most recently got a ship, an Antarctic ship as well, and then we have our operations businesses throughout South America, and then sales offices in London, Peru, services North America, New Zealand as well. So across all those different business units, we've got about 200 staff.
Okay, so customers obviously all over the world.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. Yeah. All over the world, mostly from English-speaking countries. But yes, we have probably outside of English-speaking countries, we have quite a few German clients, but Israelis as well, a few Japanese, things like that as well too. Yep.
What was business like before COVID-19 came along? How was business traveling?
It was going great. As South America sort of has grown as a destination over the last few years. So we've been getting. I think we grew. It was about 20% or so last year. So our business was firing along, and I guess it's part of our. I mean, we are South America, but Antarctica really has become one of our major parts of our business, and since getting our own ship, we sell a lot of other ships as well, but that's really boosted the business along. So yeah, it was going really well until COVID.
So let's start off with when COVID came to town. What was the kind of first impressions on how it was going to affect your business when you started to hear about lockdowns and things?
Yeah, well, for me personally, it was a little difficult because I was actually hosting an Antarctica trip which I left on in late February. So I came back in early March, and I don't know if your listeners will remember the original Planet of the Apes movie when the astronauts come back to Earth and there's a Statue of Liberty sticking out of the sand, and that's what it felt like for me coming back into Argentina after getting back from Antarctica. I mean, we still had Wi-Fi connection, but it was quite expensive. I didn't use it too much, and I knew roughly what was going on, but it dawned on me at the dock there in Ushuaia at the bottom of Argentina that this is pretty serious. So it wasn't as gradual for me because of that, but I knew right then and there it was going to be a difficult year ahead for us all.
So when you were actually away, things started to unravel. How was that from a managing the business point of view? Did you go straight into a firefighting situation, or what was the management philosophy behind that?
It really was. I actually remember being in the business lounge in Santiago Airport, sitting there looking through my emails and my blood pressure going through the roof, and already starting to deal with it then. And it was literally only a couple of weeks later when a lot of borders shut down in South America, and so for us, what we did is we had another group in a ship. That had gone down to Antarctica. Essentially, when I came back from my trip, another one left immediately on the same ship, and then they ended up getting stuck, and we couldn't even get the ship into Argentina. So we had to get a charter flight to try and get all these people out, which in the end we flew out of Montevideo. But as part of that, then we had embassies around South America saying, "Can you help us out?" And we also did a charter flight out of Peru as well, which was these are back to Australia, but that was. The Peruvian flight in particular was actually the first repatriation flight into Australia during the COVID outbreak. So we pulled it all together within about 2 weeks, and it was a logistics nightmare because it wasn't just organising the flights. isn't that difficult. But people, we had to have these staging areas. We had to have police escorts everywhere. And fortunately, we had the infrastructure on the ground with the hotels. We could use the staging points and things like that to make it all happen. But I tell you, I didn't get much sleep during that few weeks. Just dealing with South America during the night, and then with Australia during the day. And it was a pretty crazy time. And and our staff, we didn't know what was going to happen job security wise, and a lot of them were working around the clock to try and get people home as well. So it made me proud of our little organisation that we managed to do all of that, and that was obviously just the start. But the most pressing concern obviously was to try and get people home, because there are a lot of people very stressed, sort of being stuck there with borders closed.
So you really had everything going on many different fronts. You had the overall business umbrella, so to speak, with your typical general business activities, but then you had the situation where you had customers in transit, so to speak, that you had to overcome, as you say, logistical nightmares, but an unprecedented event that happened around the world with different countries and governments taking, I guess, different strategies at different times. That must have been incredibly difficult.
Oh, it was. I mean, it was chaos, and I mean, even just dealing with the different government departments, because it was such a fluid situation. It was, it was a mess. Even the governments, they were trying their best. It wasn't that anyone was doing anything wrong. It was just that things were changing by the day, and rules were changing by the day, and it was impossible to plan anything. At the end of the day, everyone was wanting to get people out. I mean, even places like Peru, they were locking down the borders, but they knew they didn't want to have these international tourists stuck there, which would be an extra weight on their health system. So they wanted to get them out. So it was just a matter of, keep knocking down each barrier until we managed to make it happen.
Now, it's easy to ask you this question with hindsight in place, but I guess in situations when you're running a travel business, often the opportunities that exist for you to really shine in front of your customers happen when things go wrong. So did you ever sit down during that period and say, right, this is an opportunity for our organisation to shine, to look after our passengers, our customers, and really make the most of this?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I wouldn't put it in that sense that we were doing it to try and shine. I think it was just that we thought it was the right thing to do, right? And and we had the opportunity. We had, I guess we were in a reasonably unique position where we had the resources on the ground there. Unlike some of our other peers who sort of use third parties and things like that. So, and in fact, a lot of our peers here in Australia in particular, we helped out and we brought a lot of their clients. So I think it was just, we felt obligated since we were in that position, and we were probably the best place to do it to help out. So we did.
So was it a situation where the travel industry came together to help each other out?
Yeah, I mean, it really was. I mean, us and a lot of our competitors all worked together to get people home as best we could. So, and some of with our Antarctica vessel as well. We had a couple other ships where we were working with them very closely to try and get different nationalities onto different flights together, and normally competing against each other, but everyone's just trying to do the best they could to help each other out. So yeah, I mean, it was really encouraging actually to have that atmosphere during that period.
Did you have any customers that ended up with COVID-19 positives?
We didn't actually. We were very fortunate. One of the ships that we almost combined with for our charter flight out of Montevideo actually ended up having COVID cases on board. Unfortunately, we couldn't take their clients in the end. But fortunately, none of our clients were infected.
And what about you coming back into Australia? Did you have to go through quarantine?
So this was early March, and I came through and there was absolutely nothing at Sydney Airport, absolutely nothing.
Right.
I was told about 2 days later that changed significantly, but I actually caught don't know if I should say this, I caught a little cold on the ship. I mean, it's quite common on ships to pick up a little lurgy as you're on board, and I was a little concerned coming through, and I knew it wasn't COVID because by the time we started out there was no COVID in South America, and it was just a sort of small cold that sort of other people hadn't had a few days, but there was no detection at all at the airport, which surprised me.
Yeah. Okay, so you got back to Australia. What was the business strategy then? What did you and your partner decide to do to lock things down and get the business under control, so to speak?
Yeah, well, I guess, it was just all hands on deck getting those people home first, and communicating with their relatives and things like that. And that was just really the key focus. But then, yeah, as you say, I mean, I guess in a sense, sort of how do we survive out of this? And it's really complicated in travel, because, a thing I've found with the travel industry compared to, say, restaurants and things like that is that it seems for the average person it's a little impersonal, a travel business. I've got so many friends who've said, "Oh, I'm eating at my local fish and chip shop or my Chinese shop or whatever, more to try and support them." And I don't. There hasn't really been that with the travel industry, I guess. So yeah, I don't know. I guess the biggest issue was that a lot of when we have people with forward trips, people pay us deposits and then we pay on, it can be hundreds, literally thousands of different operators in South America. We pay small amounts onto each of them to secure these places. So a lot of that money that we take as deposits is then paid out to these operators, and we know how tough it is for them in this situation, because unlike developed countries, they don't really have that government support like we do. So we've got then our clients coming back to us saying, "Look, we want our money back," which I can understand. I mean, especially some people paid significant deposits and they now don't want to travel because they're scared, and I completely get that. But then on the other hand, we're dealing with these suppliers who quite stressed, saying, "Look, we're going to have to survive without any revenue for 12 months, and look, we can't give you back a refund, and even if we wanted to pursue it legally, it'd be near impossible in South America and to get a result." And at the end of the day, too, we want to try and help them survive as well. So it's that delicate balancing act between helping our clients as much as possible, but then also trying to help our partners over there survive too. And so it has been there's been difficult conversations with clients who really want their money back, and us trying to explain that we're offering credits to allow people to go in the future. Yeah, it has been a little painful, and obviously not everyone's been accepting of that. But in the situation we're in, to be honest, I can't really see what other option there is for most travel companies.
Yeah, I think as we know, we're in an unprecedented, uncharted waters as a global economy, aren't we? And there's these things that you simply didn't plan for in your business plan, right? And to be out of operation for an indefinite period of time is difficult for everyone to deal with. Let's talk about your staff. What were some of the things that you've put in place to keep the staff centered and on track, and have you had to make any movements with staff?
We did made a few redundancies right at the start, and I think we realised that we'd have to sort of slim down the organisation, but it wasn't much. It was only about 15% of our workforce, whereas I know some other travel companies have cut as steep as 60 or 70%. So yeah, we did make some reductions, but fortunately in Australia we've got JobKeeper, which essentially is a payment to give some support to people in the travel industry. So I guess adjustment has been to say, well, we can't sell anything at the moment, but let's not waste this opportunity within our business in Australia. And so we're trying to find efficiencies and things like that at the moment, to improve ourselves, so when we come out the other side. As I was saying, we've got our businesses in South America as well, and that's a little bit harder. We've had to stand people down there, and a lot of them, literally had to move in with their parents and things like that because there's no support. Fortunately, one of our hotels, which is in Lima, we've got a lot of people repatriating to Peru, and we're actually taking on people as they fly in. Most of them are COVID positive as well, but our staff are still staying on, even though there's that risk there, obviously with all the PPE and everything like that, to protect them. So for there's still a job there for some of those staff, but yeah, so it's different in different locations. But yeah, it's a hard balance to manage it responsibly, but also to I do very much feel a responsibility to our staff. So they know it's almost impossible to get a job in the travel industry at the moment. So you want to try and preserve as many jobs as possible.
So as a business leader, what have been some of the most difficult things in dealing with the international component of your business? And as you say, because different countries are going through different cycles with this whole COVID-19, they're coming out of lockdown in different timeframes, and they have different regulations. So how hard has that been to manage?
Well, it's been increased. It's been really difficult, and I mean, we're so focused on South America, but I mean, if you look at it globally, the hotspot seems to change, almost constantly. It was only a month or so ago, Italy was the worst place, and now all of a sudden they're taking international tourists and they have almost no cases, and South America is obviously a bit of a hotspot at the moment. So it is really hard, and I know our staff who stayed in the hotel, like some of them just didn't want to work in that environment, and I don't blame them. It's pretty tough, but then other people have got the situation. It's a situation the world over, right? Like it's a double impact. It's a health issue and it's also an economic issue. So what's the most important for an individual? Do they see it as a bigger health risk or an economic risk? And I guess every individual's been making that decision individually.
Yeah, and I think, I just recently had a guest on the show and we talked about the mental health impact of this, both of the customer, so to speak, and also the business person, because it's a real thing. And, if the business leader is having a mental health situation through this period, it's not helping you make the right decisions or being focused enough on the business, and yet at the end of the day, businesses are people, right? So we need to look after the people first and foremost. Yeah. What are your thoughts, and this is crystal ball gazing, I'm sure, but what are your thoughts around how the customer is going to start to feel comfortable or not with traveling again when we are allowed to travel? What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, look, it is crystal ball, and I'm not sure. I mean, I think, like everybody, there's news and there's a potential vaccine towards the end of 2020, and and if that silver bullet was to happen, obviously that would be fantastic. But I guess what we're planning for at the moment is a whole bunch of measures to try and increase social distancing so that people can still travel, albeit in a different way, and especially on things like our ships. It's on our ship, for Antarctica, some buffets are quite common in the restaurants and eating areas, and that obviously all has to change and become a la carte. So, there's various changes. We're lucky on our ship because we have it's a 400 passenger ship and we run it at 200, so we've already got that social distancing. We've got 2 restaurants, and we can stage people at different times and put them in 2 locations, so we can quite easily social distance. But I don't know. I do think that there may be an opportunity in the medium term with ships. I know cruise ships in general have been, people have been quite concerned with them at the onset with, some of those, the Princess cruises in particular that got contaminated. But I think where the opportunity would be, and this depends somewhat on the testing, is if there's some sort of rapid test, and this especially for places like Antarctica where you're not visiting ports. You can do a rapid test everybody as they get on board, isolate them for, say, an hour or so until the test results come back. You put everybody on board, and then, you've got a COVID-free ship and you can take off. Whereas you can't do that on a land-based itinerary because you're going to a different town every day and meeting new people and, interacting with the hotel staff and things like that. So, maybe in the medium term, ships will become an attractive option for people until there is a vaccine.
Mm. Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? How that whole philosophy's turned around, as though they were the black ships to start off with, weren't they? Particularly in countries like Australia, where the ships came in and brought so many cases of COVID-19, and now, as you're saying, they could be a realistic travel bubble that people could get out on again. That's right.
Mm. So, I mean, a lot of that's dependent on that. The tests being available, and they're not there yet. They haven't got them, but for us, the Antarctic season starts in October, and we're only in June now. So, my money would be on there'd be something approaching that in that time frame.
Yeah. So, as someone that's got customers all over the world, and again, all these countries are in different phases, how are you keeping your finger on the pulse as to when countries are lifting their travel bans and all the rest of it?
Yeah, well, I mean, we are keeping our finger on the pulse, and in Peru's potentially looking to even allow people back in next month in South America, and obviously places in Europe are already opening up. And there's various travel bubbles being talked about in places around the world. But I think it's hard to plan for that, because even if those are ideas at the moment, who knows? These saying the hotspots change week to week and month to month. So I don't think you can plan on the basis that what's been thought about now is going to be a long-term solution necessarily. So I think, like everyone, we think there's probably a bit of time to play out on it. I think the big thing for us is, Antarctica is a big part of our business, and this coming season is going to be tough. But I guess we view that at our 21-22 season, so that would start in about October 2021. It will be, reasonably safe, that it should be over and done with by then. So that's really, in terms of sales, what we're focusing on, and we're actually surprisingly getting some reasonably good sales for that period, because consumers obviously agree with our calculation on that. So, yeah, I think that's the thing, is obviously just to try and find something to sell at a window that's a little bit further out.
And how's, or I should ask, is there any effective collaboration going on across the industry at the moment? Are you talking to other travel companies, and are you doing things, communicating at that level, or are you certainly just knuckling down and looking at your own business model?
Yeah, sorry, excuse me. We are actually, or we have been, and we've actually been talking, for example, with some of the Antarctic tour operators initially, around the idea of us taking different ships to different locations. For example, Australia and New Zealand is probably going to be a travel bubble, operate an expedition ship to Antarctica out of Australia, and then us, all our Australian, New Zealand clients across a couple of operators get put onto that ship. And then others, for North Americans, maybe go out of Argentina because that looks like it'll be open and things like that. Those sort of ideas are still floating around. There's nothing too concrete as yet, but yeah, I think everybody realizes that collaboration is what's going to get everyone through this at the moment. So yeah.
And what's the government impact on those things that you've just spoken about? How do you have to go about getting regulatory sign-off to be able to do those operations? Is it something that goes up to health minister level in government, or?
That I don't really have an answer on yet, because, for example, these ideas we haven't got sign-off, and I don't think we would. So it would be on the basis that these ideas look conceivable. We would start selling them on that basis. And as we work towards the dates, we would obviously lobby to try and get the ships to be permitted to do that. I mean, at the moment, cruise ships aren't allowed in Australia at all. So it's a little by little, and the policy would be that the people who booked on that basis could either take another trip or get a refund. So yeah. So
was there any truth around? Was there any truth around the New Zealand government's thoughts around not having a cruise ship industry going forward? Is that something you've heard?
No, I haven't. No, and I can't foresee that. I think there is still, and look, I guess we disassociate ourselves from the mainstream cruise industry, because we're expedition small ships, and I think it's a different demographic, in a sense, of people who go on our trips and wanting an adventure, and the ship just seems to be the hardware to get them there, as opposed to the die-hard cruisers, I guess. And there are a lot of them out there. And I think there'd almost be a riot in the general population if you took away cruise ships, because there are people who love them that much. So I can't, see that being politically palatable, to be honest.
Yeah, okay. So back to you as a business leader, what are a couple of the things that are coming out of this experience for you as a business leader that's teaching you about running a business?
I think one of the things I've realized is how malleable your business can actually be. When never having been in the situation before, never had to test it before, but the sort of quick innovations and cost-cutting measures and things that we've had to do, and just looking for other opportunities, like say a hotel in Peru. It's just we're taking on COVID cases, but we had to find a revenue stream there, and we did. And even though we have all these different business units, each of them individually have had to be different solutions that we've had to come to. But we can see our way out of all of them, hopefully, because we've just had to be very reactive. And I'm amazed how flexible we have been able to be, and how much we've been able to change our business while still keeping the core focus of it. So it's been quite a surprise, but quite liberating almost, in a sense too.
Do you think there'll be a lot of innovation within your business model on the other side of this?
Yeah, I think so. And I think look, we're spending a lot of time and money at the moment. Not so much money, we're trying to keep the money side, but trying to focus on innovations, and that comes down to sort of our systems, processes, documentation, automation, a lot of automation, and our website and things like that as well. So it's really given us an opportunity to get things done that we've been trying to do for years, and just with general resources being dedicated to other things, not getting to it. So yeah, I really think we'll come out sort of leaner and sharper from it.
That's a discussion that I've had with a number of business owners that have been on the show so far, that they've been able to use this time to fast track some of those functional process elements of the business and bring those forward. How many years do you think you've been able to shave off some of those things that you want to bring into your business?
Well, for example, when we've been developing our some new documentation we've been working on it for 2 years now, and it's been quite complicated. But it was just sort of slowly moving along, and I guess in the last 3 months we've almost got it. We're basically just testing it now. So I reckon there's at least 6 to 9 months there that we've shaved off it for sure.
So is there going to be an increase of use of technology, online technology and platforms that's going to be involved in your business going forward as a result of this?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think if you're not at least in our industry, if you're not using this period to adapt and to improve your processes, you're going to be left behind. It's almost like a Cold War sort of arms race, I think, in some aspects. So it's crucial that you develop and adapt, because if not, everyone else will.
And how do you think the customer experience is going to be different for customers when they get back out there again?
Yeah, well, again,
I'm talking about from time of engaging with your business in terms of booking their trip, not only the actual physical element of it, but the whole experience.
In terms of those changes, yeah. Well, so I mean, look, some of the things are reasonably subtle, but I mean, what we've been working on in our development, our documentation, for example, is a lot of most of our itineraries through South America, are custom-made trips, right? And it's quite hard. I mean, it's easy for us to think, but oh yes, we've just put you on this trip and here, and it's a 1-day trip, but it's quite hard to visualize that for somebody who hasn't been to South America before, but at the same time, it's quite time consuming for one of our team members to put together a customized itinerary on a map just for their trip, specialized for them. So now within our system, we've basically put in this GPS coordinates where the whole itinerary gets put together in our system, and then it creates a tailorized map and itinerary for them, which can be zoomed down onto details and then give them restaurant suggestions and locations, all those sort of details that really help to make a trip. But people visualize a trip a lot earlier than before they arrive there.
Yeah, brilliant. That's really good. So for people listening out there today who are running a business and they're having some stress and struggles getting through this period, what are some of the bits of advice that you'd pass on to them?
I think it's sort of around that idea of just using this time to adapt, and maybe I think one of the other things is that we get caught up in projects, and now people have more time on their hands, and sort of review your business, have a look at where there are opportunities, and I know just talking to different travel businesses around Australia, it does amaze me on some travel agents, for example, retail travel agents, how I guess they have been left a little bit behind, and that sort of travel agent who sort of sells everything, sells the world, is being lost a little bit in the modern world, and for some of them, they're looking at it as an opportunity to say, well, right, I've got to find a niche opportunity. Maybe I focus on cycle tours around the world or something like that, and then I develop a social media strategy for that, and do those sorts of things which they haven't had the time or to learn, and they've just let themselves get behind on. So yeah, I think irrespective of what your business is, you've either got to personally or as an organisation learn new things and use that to come out on the other side stronger.
So based on what you just said, you think there's going to be a lot of new niche markets that travel agents are going to focus on?
Well, I mean, that's been my advice to travel agents that I've spoken to. I mean, undoubtedly in Australia and in the UK and I think the US, there's still travel agents around, and they have been dwindling, but this is going to take out a considerable amount of them. They just won't survive it. So, and I see that as being the future. If you, for example, If you try and sell everything, you don't really have a niche. How do you have a social media following beyond your, say, geographical area in your town on social media if you just sell everything? Whereas if you sell, say, bike tours, whether it's in Vietnam or the US or Europe or whatever, you can get a following anywhere in the world, and then you develop a strategy around that. And that's where travel companies, I think, have been more successful, is when they've found that niche and then been able to appeal to an audience. So, I think that will be the way for a lot of these companies to become successful. And unfortunately, some of the rest of them might just might have to finish up.
Do you have some kind of mentoring process in your business in terms of do you get advice in that from other people?
Yes, we do. I mean, I've got a couple of industry groups that I'm a member of. One of just locally here on the Sunshine Coast, we have all from different industries, but all exporters with a digital focus, and that's been a great asset to me. And we come together every month or two and sort of just go through different ideas and support each other. We also have a great partner, an equity partner in our business, in Intrepid Travel too, which we can swap ideas with on a regular basis too. So we're quite fortunate in that regard.
And what about your offices? So do you have an office in Australia where your staff congregate and work from?
Yeah, so we've got two offices, one here on Mooloolaba on the Sunshine Coast, and Sydney as well. So,
and have they been operating all the time through this, or they have been in lockdown?
Yeah, so both of the offices were closed down for a couple of months, but we're working from both of them again now as the restrictions have eased. But yeah, we weren't out of action for too long. Everyone was continuing to work, but just from home. But yeah, back to normal now.
And as a business leader, how did you find that period when your staff were working at home? Did you see any differences there in terms of, the obvious question is productivity, but were there other things that made you think, oh, hang on, maybe we could do this from remote locations all the time and we don't need to have an office cost?
Yeah, well, in terms of travel, I'll tell you one of the things that I think is going to be a big change in the future is going to be airlines trying to sell business travel and corporate travel. Because one thing I've learned is that we do board meetings in different places around Australia because our different board members are in different locations, and we've obviously been doing them on Zoom or Microsoft Teams and things like this, and we realised we can do it just as effectively. We didn't have to spend all this money flying around the place. So, and that's board meetings, but it goes for various meetings we do. So I think a lot of businesses are learning that the technology is so good now that you can collaborate online well, and so I know that going forward. One of the challenges I have in our business is, I'm very much worried about climate change, but I realise that we contribute to it as well, and that's one change I'll definitely be making going forward, is trying to limit my corporate travel as much as possible and doing as much as I can online to help save the planet a bit.
You're reading my mind, because that was the next question in terms of sustainable travel, and the travel industry's probably got the biggest black mark for creating a lot of the pollution we deal with, particularly with airlines and that. So your business is one that's going to have a conscious movement in that area going forward?
Yeah, we have for years, and for example, our Antarctic vessel, we fully offset all the emissions on that, and we take a lot of measures like that, in our business operations. We try to reduce our footprint and offset it as much as possible. Our energy emissions in the office and things are offset. So we do as much as we can. But one thing that's always troubled me is what do we do with flights? And I still don't think there's a few people tried to solve it, but at the moment there doesn't seem to be a solution. So I don't know. I hope we find a solution soon because it's such a huge emitter.
Well, I think Elon Musk's going to solve it all for us, isn't he?
Well, hopefully. I've seen some sort of emission neutral ideas being floating around biofuels and things like that, which they instead of getting up to aviation grades. So it's not really reducing it. You're still sort of burning emissions, but making it neutral. So I don't know. Hopefully we get there, because we can't just keep increasing air traffic each year and burning more and more fossil fuels.
I thought he was going to fly us from Sydney to London in 1 hour versus the 20 whatever hours it is now.
The jet lag would really be a struggle after that. But,
Chad, before I let you go today, is there anything else you want to share with our global listeners in the business world about this current period and what you expect the travel industry to look like coming out the other side?
No, I think that's it. Really, thanks very much for letting me have a chat. And as I say, I mean, yeah, one thing we're looking at a lot at the moment is Antarctica at the end of 2021, and our ship's the Ocean Endeavour. Feel free to go online and have a look at it, and we'd love to have you to come down and travel with us.
Yeah, fantastic. We need to be supporting the travel industry during this time. I'll be putting Chad's business's website details all in the show notes for you to get today, so you'll be able to check out what they have to offer and book a ticket and go and see some spectacular parts of the world that you may not have gone before COVID-19. Chad, thanks for coming on the show today. It's been great having you.
Thanks, mate.
Look forward to having you back on the show one day soon, Chad. Thanks again. There we go, folks. That was Chad Carey. He's the co-founder of Chimu Adventures, based out of Australia, but offices all over the world, and taking care of you to South America and Antarctica and some other wonderful places. So check out the details on their website. Hope you got to hear a lot of things about how businesses are being affected, but also how they're being managed during these very difficult times. There's so many of us out there that are in different predicaments. I want to hear from you. So if you're running a business and you want to share your process at the moment with us from anywhere in the world, get in contact with me, and I'm happy to set up a opportunity for you to be on the Global Business Podcast. I do have another podcast channel. It's called the Global Travel Channel. So if you're into a bit of travel, check that one out as well at www.globaltravelchannel.com. And you'll find over 150 podcast episodes there of amazing travel experiences that people have had all over the world. Okay, well, that's it for me for this particular episode. Don't forget to check out our website, www.theglobalbusinesspodcast.com. It's easy as that. You'll find the episodes we've done so far and listening to people who are managing their way out of COVID-19. Thanks for listening. I'll be back again soon with another podcast. Until then, my name's Mark Philpott. Stay safe and stay well, everyone.